Of course, we're taking all the precautions to protect our staff and to protect the public as they come in, but all the city buildings are open. We've got markers there to keep people 6 feet apart. We've got hand sanitizer there. So we're really promoting the social distancing and making sure that you're safe when you come in. But the city still has to work. The city still has to go on. So all of our buildings are open as of June 1st. And so far it's gone very smooth.
How about the employees? Everyone has an opinion, and when you work for somebody, you have some are more cautious than others. Some feel that maybe even the votes that you take are not unanimous.
Right.
So some people are for, some people are against how we're doing things.
Yeah. And in today's world, the way it is right now, I believe that people's nerves are just on edge, and it's almost like you put red peppers on an already inflated nerve. So there are people that certainly city staff that are concerned, and we're doing everything we can to keep them protected. Again, sanitizing properly, social distancing. As an example, you look what a great job the library has done in opening up. So they're opening up from 9 to 12 for people to come in, and they're doing everything that they can to keep people apart. And then they close from 12 to 1. To sanitize everything, go through and clean everything, and come back to open 1 to 4. So that's really the way all of our departments are going. They're taking it very, very seriously.
School in the fall is going to be a hodgepodge again, a patchwork, I think. But the main thing, and with sports even, looking at the WIAA, until we get a vaccine, then we can open and say, okay, now it's up to you that you can get protected. I think a lot of this has to do the possible litigation in some people's case.
Well, absolutely, and also there is the information on when a pandemic hits. There's so much information that is state of the art today, and then we learn a week from now that it was wrong. And so people are, and this is the problem, I think, that being part of the public that I have and many people have, is you just don't know anymore whether you're getting the right information or not, which is why you have to protect yourself. You have to. So whenever a vaccine comes, you hear these things that it's interesting to watch the news, because the media used to be credible, and I believe that's gone. Because you see things now where we're going to have a vaccine in 2 months, and then other people on the same show will say, no, it's 4 years away, 2 years away. They're not thinking about the public on putting out good, credible information. A drug, first of all, this is really good. 2 weeks later, no, that's terrible. Now they're coming back and saying, well, that drug that we said was terrible is actually pretty good. So all the places where we get this information, they've really got to start growing up. They got to start playing like the rest of us have to. The rest of us here in the real world, we can't play these games that is being played, and it's frustrating for people. Very frustrating.
You're in an unenviable position where you're making policies, and as you're just stated, you're trying to do that at a moving target.
Well, and no matter what you do, there are going to be people that are for it and think it's a good decision, and against it and think there is a bad decision. I've been a soccer coach and a football coach, and I was also a referee in both sports. And this is a great analogy. A referee is only right 50% of the time. It's a matter of when he or she makes a call, who does it go against? And the other person, even if it's the right call, they don't like it. So as a public official, you have to do what is in your best interest, and what is in the best interest of the people. And now the issue is many people that are in politics don't have the ability, it's just not in their DNA to say, I was wrong. I made a mistake, or the data that I had at the time. With the data that I had at the time, I believe this was the right decision. But with the data that we have now, we have to research. We have to go the other way. And but in politicians, you see this all the time. I have to tell you what, our federal leaders, this is ridiculous. It's become a blame game, and they're not being a good example to the people that they lead or our children. I mean, we're teaching our children, if you don't like something, blame it on the other guy. And it's just wrong. And it's not just one person. It's not just one party. It's the whole shooting match. And it's so they can play that game up at that level, but those of us here at the local level that have to be responsible adults, we have to go in this very interesting dynamic called reality. And we don't have the luxury of, I'm not going to start blaming other people and stuff like that. That's useless. And it's not leadership. Leadership is you have to make decisions that are hard decisions to make, and you have to weigh all the factors, and then you make have other things in the peripherals maybe that you didn't see coming, and you got to be accountable to those. So it's a very, very interesting time. It's a very interesting time to be in leadership, because if you don't play the typical leadership game or the typical political game, there's backlash for that.
There's a backlash no matter which way.
There is backlash for that.
And it's sad, because if we could all get together in one movement some way, and I know that sounds Pollyanna under the circumstances, but it would be just to relax for a while. We get in numbers. You meet people on the street, like you said, at your level of politician. You meet people on the street. Feds, they don't have to see you and me in the grocery store every day like we do here. You start to meet people and you realize it's not about us. It's about policies and procedures and things that are blown way out of proportion, and people get rock hard in how they want things done, and no, that's not right. And people still hold the door for me. Mm-hmm. People still move out of my way. People still say, excuse me. You know, we're not running over each other and being mean to one another. Some people are in their policy, but not personally.
Right.
It seems like when you get down to this level, you begin to get more real feedback, as you call it, living reality here of where we're at.
You do, and it is before I ran for mayor, I wasn't an political thing, but it is one that I enjoy, because I do enjoy dealing with the actual people, whether they come up to me at Festival or Menards or Pick and Save or whatever, or even at a restaurant, and have many people come up and say, hey, you're doing a great job. I appreciate that. Others come up and say, hey, I have a problem with this, or why do you think this is? And when you can have those conversations, it's really good, because most people are really pretty simple to deal with. But when you go on social media and you see that stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, just attack left and right. It makes no sense. I think we've got to get a conscience back in our world. But I will say this. People will say a lot behind a keyboard, and they would never say those things directly to people. When we talk directly to people, like I say, I meet a lot of people. There's been people that don't like something. We have a conversation. Sometimes they can see why we went a certain way, and otherwise they can't. But they always, even the ones that I've had that were really upset about something, they appreciated the conversation. And there was good dialogue. And I've not had one bad word to a lot of people. I'll give you a great example. We just, I don't know if you saw this. There was the pool came up. Now, the pool is a controversial subject for some. Hefco Pool has been there. It's part of Marshfield's history, I think, 84 years. And the pool is failing fast. And every year we've got to go in to put a lot of money to get it going. Well, we've come to the point where prior to COVID, we had about $1.3 million fundraised so far. Now, this was supposed to be a project project of 16 to 20 months. So even though in the beginning of March or whatever, we were at 1.2 or 1.25 or something like that, we were pretty far along the way, and we're very optimistic about it. Well, during COVID, we had somebody come in to give the naming rights, and that's still anonymous. But now we're up to 2.5. Because now you are really close to the end, and we've got other people that are looking to donate. So this is really good. So this is what this is the scenario on making a decision. Part of the pool issue is, all throughout Wisconsin, I think there's 22 municipalities with pools, and only 4 of them were opening up. We were going to open up the pool on June 20th. In the time that original decision was made to open up, just after that is when we got confirmation of that the new donor to take us from 1.2 to 2.5. Well, now if you look at this, here's the opportunity. If we know for sure that opening up June 20th, because of social distancing and we have to allow less people, not to mention there are going to be a lot of people that aren't going to want to go to a pool. So it's going to cost you a lot of money to get the pool up and running, and then you're going to have less people there. So if we do that, we estimate the savings to be about a $69,000 savings if you don't open the pool. So we would open it up from June for 2 months, and we know that we would have at least 50% less people there. Now, in the way this was originally set was, if we have this full season, then we start construction sometime in October or November. And then next season, we have no pool because you can't get it done that quick. So we have a minimal 50% capacity this year, and next season you have nothing. Well, then we learned that if we don't open the pool this year and we can get it out to favorable bidding, you'll have favorable bidding. Contractors know that next year there aren't going to be building a lot of hotels and other things, so we know the bids will be less. We calculated that savings to be about $300,000. And the other bigger issue here is then we could be open for a full season next year. We won't lose next year. We'll be open for the entire season with a brand new aquatic center. Well, when you look at that and you go, oh my gosh, your best case scenario is you would have 50% capacity, if that, this year, and none next year. Or we close it now, get favorable bids and everything going, save $300,000, and open up to a brand new aquatic center next year. That's a great situation to be in. But for the people that only hear the part of the story about the pools closing, and they're putting that to COVID, and they don't put this whole thing together, it becomes an issue. Now, there are some people that have been very like, oh my gosh, this is great. And there are other people that are like, COVID did it again. And it's like, this really doesn't have anything to do with COVID. This makes the most sense on a multitude of different things. Number one, we'll be opening up next season with a brand new aquatic center that people that can go and enjoy. And, big savings as well, which is typically not something that you hear in these types of things. So, and, we've still got another $500,000 to raise, and we've got some good folks that have, that are very, very promising. I believe that we will be there within the next few weeks.
So the only part that COVID really played was the estimated 50% drop in attendance for the summer.
Yeah, it had nothing to do. It had nothing to do at all, because we were going to open up we were going to open up the pool. That was made in the thing. But what happened was, well, this is where COVID was favorable, if you will, is the fact of we'll get better bids and we'll be able to do more construction that will be non-winter construction. So therefore, that is going to be that alone will be less expensive.
So it's going to be. I heard discussion in the meeting about here on WDLB about how there was a reticence to give more money or to pledge money without having the fundraising at 100% of its goal. Did I misinterpret what I heard?
No, there was one alderman that had an issue with the fact of now all we're doing right now in moving forward with this is putting out what's called RFPs, requests for proposals, to get these in. So that's not approved yet. That won't be approved to actually go through with these bids. Right now, we're just getting the bids. So, and the intent is by the time those bids are in, maybe in early July, that the rest of the fundraising is done. So we're not saying that we're going to break ground or do anything prior to that. Plus, you can do the earthwork, and there's different stages of work that can be done as well. So, but I will say this: I'm very confident we're going to get to $3 million in a very short period of time.
But we are not at full goal yet.
No, right now we're at 2.5. We're 500,000 away.
Okay, let's go to the phone. Pete, go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning, gentlemen. First, I'd like to thank the mayor and publicly Dan Connect for some of the work that they've helped me get. They did get a light down by the North Shore nursing home, make it safer for visitors and the workers. And they did some street work that really needed it. I called a couple months ago, and the mayor talked to Dan, and Dan had it done within 2 days. So publicly, I want to thank both of those gentlemen. And I just want to remind the mayor that the city did pledge, originally it pledged $3 million, and they still upped that to $3.5 million, which I still believe is wrong, because they said they needed soft cost money, and the council went back and said, okay, we'll give you another $500,000. I still think that that's wrong. Just keep this in mind that money should not be dispersed until that fundraiser has reached $3 million. No matter how you juggle the cost, that was $300,000 that we're going to save to start early or whatever, that should have nothing to do with releasing that money that the city's committed. Okay.
Well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging the work that Dan Connect did over there, and we certainly do appreciate that. And you bring up two very, very good points. And the first point is to make sure that we don't start to do work before we've got everything fundraised, and that is absolutely the intention that everybody is going to go by. The other point he brings up is very good. Is we learned after we got the bid about something called soft cost. Now, that's probably the most imaginative way that I've ever heard something put, is soft cost. What is this? And what the caller is referring to is to make the vessel, to make the pool, is $6 million, but there's other things associated with it, such as the design of it and the paying the fundraising consultant and other things, permits and things like that weren't calculated with that. And so when we did have that council meeting, it's kind of like for anything future on major projects that we do, we have to calculate all that in. You just can't come. Oh, by the way, we're $500,000 short. So your point is very, very well taken, and this is why we're going to be. There's a couple things that go along here. Number one, this is why we're going to stay very aggressive fundraising to see if we can even get above. And the other thing is, the more we can do to save this cost, which right now is $300,000. Now that's the estimate. Then that's gonna peck away, if you will, at the other $500,000 of soft cost. So your points are very well taken.
Well, you know what? That makes me feel a little bit better, because then the city's only going to commit 3.2 instead of 3.5. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. And if we can if we can even fundraise more, then we can absorb even more of that. And so this is what we're trying to do by getting out to bids here, because right now everything is an estimate. So you can't see this because we're on the radio, but when I say estimate, I've got air quotes with in there, because we've got to see, I think if we're going to, if I'm being told by all these people that we're saving $300,000, and that means we've got to come in $300,000 lower. But when this was projected a while ago, I think a year or two, that would have been the expense then. So now we've got to see what this is going to be. And then the other thing is the people that make these pools and things like that, they're a little bit hungrier for bids, so they're sharpening those pencils. So what we're doing here is we're putting it out for RFP so we could see, okay, what are the real numbers? Let's get out of happy land, if you will, and let's get down to reality of what are the real numbers, so we know what to go at in today's time. So your points are very well taken.
This last thing, and I'm going to let you guys go, just keep in mind that this is the public money, and there's a lot of the public that doesn't agree with the pool in the first place, because it's used by 1% of the population of the city, something like that, maybe 2% at the most, but yet the whole community is paying for it. It should have really been, in a lot of people's opinions, it really should have been a private entity coming in, building this thing, running it, reaping the profits, paying the loss, whatever. It really shouldn't have been a government project, and that would have saved the city $3 million, maybe $3.2 million, or maybe $3.5. So just do what you can not to spend our money anymore. Appreciate it.
Your point is well taken.
Bye.
All right, thank you. 384-2192, 384-2192 on the Insight program for today. Yeah, it's tough. Again, there's that moving target of money. How do you know until the bids come in what actual numbers you would need?
Right. When they do the forecasting and everything, those are pretty close. But, now we're going to get down to real numbers and see what they really are. And I'm very encouraged by that. But we're going to continue to fundraise. And I will say this, the caller brought up a very, very good point. There are people that think, I don't use a pool. Why do my taxes go to it? There are people that don't have any kids or they don't have any kids in school, and they say, why do I have to pay, the school tax when I don't have any kids in school? But that's what a community is about. Now, but the caller is right. There are people that are not for this, and there are a lot of people that are for this and are very vigorous. But let's just understand this. I believe that we will end up doing more fundraising inside the COVID world than we did before. And if that doesn't tell you how generous the people of Marshfield are and how these people want it, then I don't know what else could. Because if you look at many times municipalities, there were some aldermen, the former Alderman Jokic, who served, not only was he an alderman for several years, but he was a mayor in the early 2000s. He didn't want to have any public funding or any private fundraising at all. He felt the municipality should do it, and that's the way most municipalities are. But the people here in Marshfield have continued to be very gracious, and clearly they're very optimistic about where things are going.
Well, one last point here, and that is that government gets involved when private can't, and that's kind of their role. On the other hand, we talk a lot about this city and being one of a few in central Wisconsin, and with world-class health here, jobs could go to other places. We need curb appeal. We've got a zoo, we've got trails, we've got softball diamonds, and everybody can throw their hands up and say, well, I don't play softball, I don't ride the trails, I don't go. We need curb appeal to have our bringing in the kind of quality people here that are looking at communities similar around the country. And that sounds like one of those gaseous things that you can't see, smell, or touch, I mean, you're just blowing smoke here, But in reality, it is a reality. Ask anybody who's in the chamber or in the tourism business that's something that you need to have.
Well, it absolutely is, and that's why the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, now Visit Marshfield. They do a lot of work to bring people in, and that is exactly, you call it curb appeal, and I think it's a pretty good term. Other people call it quality of life. When we don't want the people to leave to go to Wausau, Stevens Point to shop, or there are people that leave Marshfield to go up to the pool and the water park up there in Wausau. And it's like, we want to keep them here. And as you said, what a great thing. I mean, we've got a world-class zoo. I mean, our bear exhibit, just the bear exhibit alone, is the largest bear exhibit in the entire country. And so you've got that. Fields, the new athletic field over at the high school. So when we bring in these, loads of people that are going to go to softball tournaments and baseball tournaments, if they've got a baseball game at 9:00 in the morning and then one at 4:00 in the afternoon, parents want to have options of what they can do with their kids. What a great thing to go to a water park. And this will not just be a pool, it will be a water park. So the entire family, the kids, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, uncles, whoever, can go and enjoy it. It's not just going to be a dip in the pool. So it's very exciting.
It's a little harder sell for those born and raised here as opposed to those who've been other places and had a little different perspective on how the world works.
Yes, very true. And the other thing that you hear a lot is I hear people say this, there's nothing to do here in Marshfield. And if you just go on and look, there are all kinds of things going on all the time. So we can't take away a pool and think that we're going to go down this other road. So again, I'm not marginalizing the people that don't want the pool. Their voice needs to be heard. But there's all these voices. So when you get down, like what we were originally talking about, when you get down to the decision that's actually going to be made, not everyone's, just because of their own personal views or dynamics, not everybody's going to be on board for it.
Talking with Mayor Bob McManus, you can too, 384-2192, 384-2192 here on the Insight program on this first Friday in the month of June. It's going by already. We'll talk about some events, most of them. It's like, why take quarantine off? There's nothing going on anyway. Right. Might as well self-quarantine,
Right.
Have a cookout in the backyard. But there are some things going on. We'll talk about one of them coming up. On the first Friday of the month, Mayor Bob McManus avails himself to your questions here live on the radio. You could be watching us at marshfieldmedia.org, marshfieldmediaaccess.org, as we are also being videoed here, and you can see that in replay throughout the month in rotation on channel 989 on your Spectrum Digital tier, or you can see it online at marshfieldmediaaccess.org and watch the program here. It's exciting, isn't it? With your air quotes and me pushing buttons. I mean, wow, this is something to watch, isn't it? Like, man, what a snooze fest.
Right. People are glued.
Yeah. I think to myself, like, today in the world, if you don't have something big, it's hard to hold people's attention, Like,
right.
you see these press conferences and things, and it's like they got to have Beyonce in the background with fire going off or something for people to go, oh, there's something to watch here.
Right.
Otherwise it's a guy talking. It's like, wah, 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 sound like Charlie Brown's teacher after a while, even though he's saying important things.
Right.
It's tough. We have, in this world today, speaking of that, as we talk here on this first part of June, protests around the country have been held. Cities have been looted and burned in a blaze, and there are people who are peacefully protesting, including here in Marshfield. Mm-hmm. And we just had an event here as we're talking now. If you're watching us in replay, just the last night at the Wenzel Plaza downtown, where the Marshfield Police Department took initiative and there were sheriff's department there as well, because on this program, as you may see in video, both the sheriff and the police chief were on the same program and came in and said, we're shoulder to shoulder here showing cooperation. And it wasn't always that way. So there's harmony in not only the police and the law enforcement themselves in this area, but also trying to say, look, before you go off on us, understand that we're part of you. So,
Correct.
And what did you think of the event?
It looked very well attended. I think the estimate was right around 300 people. Everybody was peaceful. The police, Marshfield PD, the sheriff, as you said, were there, and they had good dialogue with folks. There was one on Wednesday as well that was more or less a peaceful protest, a march, where they went up and down Central around the plaza a couple of times, and then they assembled down there by 4th and Central, and it was peaceful. And there was a couple of dialogues that were had with the police, and then the police chief Rick Ramsey had this one last night with two organizations that were coming to do a protest anyway, and then the police department felt that this would be a good time for them to get in there and to get in dialogue with people. And they had some great conversations with people. I think people left there thinking that this was a good thing, and realized that the police they're there to protect us. It's hard being a police officer, and there are some in every profession that are not good apples, but the majority of the men and women behind that badge are outstanding people. And sadly, we don't get enough press coverage of that. And as you see this, as you watch your TV and you watch these news networks, they should be ashamed of themselves for the way that they are promoting the violence. They're getting their silly little camera right in front of a protester's face who's clearly upset and frankly has every right to be. But do we really need to put the camera 2 inches from them when they are having a discussion with a police officer? The protester is doing what they feel is right. I'm not here to judge that. The police officer is doing what is their job to do. Why does the news camera need to have their camera so close to inflate this? And what they don't do is they don't do a good enough job of showing all of the police officers, the men and women behind that badge, that do a good job, that are out there promoting that we work together and we have to get better. I'm disgusted by the news media. Now, what happened to this gentleman in Minneapolis was a travesty. You gather all that. This is the interesting part. I learned this a long time ago. I've learned to trust what my eyes see over what people say. 8.5 minutes, this person had his knee on someone's neck. Clearly, watching this, after 6 minutes, this gentleman starts complaining of abdominal pain, and he's calling for his mom. When somebody like that is claiming for abdominal pain, they're probably going to lose their bowels very, very quickly, and that is due to stress and asphyxiation. And for the last 2 minutes that this person had his knee on this man's neck, the victim was limp. I believe he was probably dead at that time, but I don't know. And I'll get to that in a second. And then he's taken away. Now, let me be very, very clear. That was wrong. That is injustice. And that needs to be held accountable. There is no doubt. There's no questioning that. The authorities above them, I think, were not only that person should have been taken into custody, if not right then very shortly after, and the other 3, because be real clear, Jeff, If somebody were in here and one of us had our knee on his neck for 8.5 minutes, and 3 other people were there holding him down, and the person that this was being done to lost their life, all 4 people would be in cuffs that day. It would not take 9 days. Our eyes see what's going on. Now, probably the reason that the authorities didn't do that is because of cases that have happened, like the Rodney King incident. And I lived through Rodney King. I mean, I lived through the day that it took place and the riots after they were all kind of
Meaning
let
you
off.
were in California.
I was in California. I mean, it was very close to where I lived, and where I lived once the riot hits, we were right in the middle of it. Those officers got off, and it was very, very clear. And so this is why sometimes authority, they want to make sure that the charges that they bring are going to be, that they're going to stick. So once it gets down to all the evidence, and then they're going to start taking into effect the victim's past and all this other stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with somebody on having somebody's neck on or somebody's knee on your neck. It gets inflated. And this is why I think that the people's nerves are all around the country. That was an injustice. There's no doubt about it. But we're just coming off of COVID. And if you've noticed in the national media, you don't even hardly hear about COVID anymore. It's still here. Just 2 weeks ago, it was doom and gloom. And now we're not talking about that. And now we're going to this. And then what was it that was there for a while? The biting hornets or the killer hornets or this hornet or that hornet? Come on, the people are tired of it. And this is why people, I think, are so volatile, is because we're just getting fed this over and over and over, and it's got to stop.
Well, talking to your point about the media, I don't know CNN. I've never talked to anybody at CNN. I've never had any dealings with CNN, but I am in the media. And you don't have anything to do with the federal government, but you're a politician.
Right.
And so I'm in it, and so I get questions, and I get even the things that I say from time to time.
Yep.
Why did you say that? Why did you come at it from this point of view? I'm like, look, I'm just trying to say, you take what point of view I have and tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I'm not trying to lead you down a path.
Right.
And people begin to get that point that they're trying to be led, and they're being led. The question you had, why do they have to put the camera in people's face, is the same question that is being asked in journalism classes and has been for decades. The question being, when it bleeds, it leads. What they wanted to do in years past is to get the crying victim on camera.
Sure.
And now people are going, is that necessary? But that was the thing that made the emotion that made you want to watch the news. But is news entertainment, or is news news? What is news? All these questions are being asked in journalism classes right now across the country as these kids are coming through going, is this necessary? Years ago I wanted to be Howard Stern and drop F-bombs on the air. Now I'm old enough, I'm going, is that necessary?
Right.
Your perspective changes in this whole life as it goes on. It's not that I got smarter, I'm just looking at it from a different angle now.
Right.
Old people were smelly and funny when I was young. It ain't so funny anymore.
Right. It's interesting because it has taken a toll, because part of this is entertainment and people do want to see certain things, but there comes a point where there comes to, in my opinion, journalistic integrity. And I believe that on our national thing, that's gone. There is none. Just from what I see. But, this goes a long way back. Back in the late 90s, there were 2 shows that started. Number one was the Jerry Springer Show. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-hmm. Still on.
I mean, still on. The stuff that they have on there is mind-boggling. You feel brain cells falling out of your head if you watch it. A show that came on that same time was by he's a great speaker. He's got a great story, Les Brown. And Les Brown, when he grew up, it's a great story. He grew up in the projects, and he did not do well in school. He had a learning disability, so he couldn't do a lot of the basics, and he never let that get in his way. And he's a very prominent author and speaker, even today, motivational speaker. And he did a show on NBC, and all of his stories, he would find other people that had similar, things. The chips were down. I picked myself up and I went to, I got better. Just like the Pursuit of Happiness, that story is a great story. And both of those came out on the same network, at the same time. Les Brown's show lasted 2 months. Nobody wanted to watch it. But people will watch Jerry Springer, where you find out all this weird kind of stuff. And so there is something to say that people want to see that. But there just comes a way, in the funeral for this gentleman that tragically lost his life. The cameras were even in there. And this is another question. This is a real big one. Because in there they've got people crammed in, sitting side by side. Now, granted, it's a funeral, and that part I understand. But in other places, we can't go to graduations and things like this. It's like, okay, look, if we're going to be consistent, let's be consistent. But even at that man's funeral, with his brother up there giving a eulogy, and it was a beautiful eulogy, and his family grieving, we couldn't let them be, just so that they could pay their respects to their son or friend or whatever that tragically lost his life. We couldn't give them an hour to just try to grasp it.
Just back to the Jerry Springer thing. Look
Absolutely.
at the ratings.
Oh.
We're voyeurs.
Right.
We've been conditioned to be that. We weren't always that way when Walter Cronkite gave us a half hour's news on a weeknight.
You used the key word, and I'm very sorry to interrupt. We have been conditioned. We went from COVID, tragic. Everybody, run for cover, and it is a nasty disease. There's no doubt about it. Where I think we're doing a great job here in Wisconsin. Our numbers are, and again, you see this on the media, and again, it disgusts me. Look at the numbers of the people that are we had 483 new cases yesterday. Yeah, we had 14,000 tests. A month ago, 5 weeks ago, we would only do 3,000 tests, and we would have 362 new people. So your infection rate, we knew that there was more people out there. Everyone knew that. But now when you look at, 300 to 3,000 is 10%. Now 400 to 14,000, our infection rate has gone down from, the height was at 9.59. It's now down to 6.08 in the whole state. We've done a great job. In the north central region here in Marathon County and Wood County, and then there's 10 other counties involved. We only have, I think, 4 people that are actually in the hospital and 1 in the ICU. That's it. 12 counties. Now, in other places, hot spots like Milwaukee, where there's more people, there's obviously more, but we've done a really, really good job. But it's gone now.
Well, do we take the bridle off then and say, okay, we're clear to go?
No, but when we're conditioned to go to hot story to hot story to hot story, and that's what has led people to, I think, to be confused over, okay, well, what's next? And then you heard just before when we were sitting in here in the news, the national news media is now upset because their unemployment rate went down. People are getting back to work. That's positive. We should like that. That should be encouraging. But if you listen to the national media and you go on there and watch how they spin it today and tomorrow and Sunday morning, it's just disgusting. I mean, we want people to get back to work. We want people to be okay. I mean, there was unemployment went way up. There are a lot of people that work in restaurants. The hospitality industry was hit the first and hit the hardest. It's going to be the slowest to come back, but other industries are back. And I think that companies that learn some efficiencies, maybe they don't have to have these big buildings. Maybe people can work at home. And I believe that there's going to be some positives of this. But it would just be nice to go back to the days of Walter Cronkite. Can you imagine journalists that just report the news as opposed to you watch them. They're just trying to get you mad. And so you see people just...
CNN and Fox don't get ratings off of that.
No.
Well, listen, we're running out of time here, and I'm getting Jeffy Springer, and I'm talking all about philosophy rather than the city business here.
Sure.
So we started going into the break about an event that is going to come up, a positive note, as you would say, and that is the fireworks for the 4th of July.
Yep.
Decided to do that. Why?
Well, the people need... The people need that, I think. It's like, many people are going to be there. People watch, the fireworks from all over. And Festival is graciously still going to do that. We sure appreciate what they do. And we're not going to have the bounce houses and the DJ and all that stuff there. But people will, they'll be able to come, and we're going to encourage them to socially distance themselves. Or maybe they just might watch from home. And watch the fireworks go off. But it is going to take place, and I think we can't just take away everything. And so I think this will be good. We still encourage people that if they are going to go over there towards the fairgrounds, stay apart from each other, keep those good 6-7 feet of distance between you, but enjoy them. I mean, we're very, very happy that that's taking place.
At this time, as we're speaking here on the first Friday of the month, talking with Mayor Bob McManus on the Insight program live on WDLB, the Central Wisconsin State Fair hasn't made an announcement yet, but you can see the bricks falling out of the wall all over, including the big boys, the state fairs even, for that same reason, first of all, sponsorship. A bunch of businesses were just hurt dramatically by COVID-19 lockdown.
Correct.
Now you're going to go back and say, here, give me some money so we can, I don't have any, Right. I don't even have all my employees back yet. I don't even know what's going on here yet. That's down for the fairs and entities that are trying to run events. Then you have the attendance. Is anybody going to show? Half the people are, like you said, 50% attendance on Hefco Pool was an estimate of being down.
Right.
Can you make any money when there's half the people there? We couldn't make money before when half the people showed up on a rainy day. How can we...
Well, and that's the other side of this that I don't think the general public understands. Sometimes, like in the event of Hub City Days and the fair, many of the people that come there, the vendors that really pay the sponsorships, if they say they're not coming and you have a bunch of the people that normally come to pay for this and they say they're not coming, well, then you have to make the decision that you can't do it. But people see it as though, oh, look, the city or the entity is canceling it. It's like, no, the vendors aren't. And so there's always more to the story.
Well, I'm glad you come in and talk with us here about these things and are able to give the citizens an opportunity to visit with you at a time when they can keep on doing what they do, I guess.
Yep, that's good.
All right, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me.
Mayor Bob McManus on the Insight program this first Friday in June here on AM 1450 WDLB.
The Rivers, Holiday Inn Marshfield, now open.